Thank you, 99.co and Silly, for inviting. Great to be here with, of course, all the speakers and, of course, to kickstart the first segment. So, my name is Melvin Lim, co-founder and CEO of PropertyLimBrothers. I believe all of you are here today to learn and, of course, to understand and explore more about your options. And, of course, with the host of topics that Darius has introduced in terms of finance and property, very excited to share with you about this particular topic today. And of course, when I was crafting out the content for today's segment, I think when we look at this particular topic, how to profit from upgrading your property. So maybe you might be here, you have already owned one property that you're currently living in, or you might be in the process of looking for a second property to invest, or you might be currently at the stage that you are planning to buy your first home. I think this topic more or less will help you to bring home some very important nuggets. But what I will be focusing on today is the very fact that I would not be focusing on affordability, because if you are thinking about affordability, TDSR, how many months of installments do you need to have in your bank or CPF to sustain your property investment or your first property, or your stress test level on the percentage of your income. I think later on, in terms of the speakers, they'll be very wise to advise you on that. What I want to focus on today is, because through my journey over the last 16 years, as co-founder and CEO of PropertyLimBrothers, for the last 6 years, my first 10 years as a realtor, and of course the last 6 years as running two companies. One is PLB Media, a creative agency. The other one was set up last year as a real estate company. Through the years of journey, doing so many home tour content, and of course helping a lot of our clients, is that I realized the number one mistake in Singapore, because we are so land scarce, and of course our time is precious. The years to own a real estate up to the loan tenure age of 65, or if you refinance up to 75, actually the period of owning a real estate is actually very little. So sometimes, through the journey of selling homes, I realized that some homes really takes very long to exit. So if you were to go into a property without doing your analysis, without having proper framework and methodology, you might be owning a property that you can eventually sell, but sometimes it jeopardizes your next home, because you take very long period to exit from the current home. So I think importantly for me is that I want to share today on how to avoid 3 very important mistakes that I've seen over the last 16 years, and what are some of the 3 methodologies that we have been adopting to help some of our clients. So this is our channel. If we have not met digitally, you can head on to PropertyLimBrothers YouTube channel. We create a lot of great content. We also started 2 other channels. One is NOTG, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, property owners, and of course we also have another channel called PLB Insights, that we talk about new launches and we study the analysis, pricing, and framework. So this is our team. We have a creative agency arm as well as a realty arm. My dream has always been to marry media, content, technology with real estate consultants. So currently we're a team of about 130 people. And of course, this has been one of the hot questions that a lot of people have, because 2023 is a year with a lot of real estate news. So every week you look at Business Times and Straits Times, you'll be flushed with news, and we're all thinking, are prices too high now? Will prices come down? And when we are looking at all the property news and we look at the amount of cooling measures that we have, this entire chart tracks the 16 rounds of cooling measures that our Singapore government has already introduced. All the way starting from Lehman Brothers 2009 until today, we have 16 rounds. We already have 5 rounds of ABSD. And if we just look at this, it seems that every round of cooling measures sort of spur the price upwards even more. And I think we are at a stage that we are quite stuck, because our government really cannot remove any form of cooling measures from these 16 kind of dots that you see right there. So whether you're talking about landed properties, which is the orange color line, you're talking about condominiums, the red color line, or you're talking about HDB apartments, the blue color line, the moment they release any cooling measures, what's going to happen is that it will open up the floodgate for liquidity to come in again. So we're sort of trapped right now that even though with prices going up gradually, volume is still pretty much healthy. And of course, I think the key policies is that we don't want prices to go up too quickly, right? So these are the latest news that has came up this week. This year, the market didn't start off well because we have US bank collapses. We have, of course, Fed is not reducing interest rates. And right now, of course, what is happening in the Singapore market is that even though Fed rates are high, but I think our government was very quick to react, and they introduced SORA rates. And right now, if you look at fixed rates, it's already coming down to about 3.2%, which is quite stable. And the interesting thing is that even though with a lot of negative news, but why is it that in terms of Singapore's health, in terms of household income, in terms of sustainability, you're still looking at positive, kind of contrary news. So sometimes it confuses us because on one hand, if we want to buy something, we hope that prices will come down so that we can get a good deal. But on the other hand, we are also thinking about whether are we entering at too high a price. So Singapore, if you look at this, our median household income actually across major cities has already increased. This was last year's kind of statistics. And I think on a sustainability level, Singapore is doing well. So when we move on to today's topic on the 3 mistakes and methodologies, I think something to ponder about is that why do homeowners switch to private properties? Is it even prudent? Because if you cannot pay your monthly mortgage for the next 3 months, what's going to happen is that the bank has the right to repossess your home. And of course, if you didn't do your due diligence, didn't plan out properly, will it be a high-risk kind of move? And when you see your colleagues or your friends or other property owners making that switch to own the first private property or maybe 2 or 3 private homes, what is it that they know that we don't? And why is it that people tend to want to park capital, your bonuses, your profit, save up for down payment, but you want to park into something that is so illiquid? Because real estate is very illiquid. If you want to exit, it takes a long period of time to exit, including your marketing period, as well as the completion period. Compared to equities, it is pretty much illiquid. So why is it that they still want to do that? And we're just doing out a heat map across the last 3 years, starting from COVID until today. And if you look at the bottom 6 rows, where all the green color heat maps are, those are basically the landed condominiums across different segments. And of course, we compare that with Bitcoin, we compare that with STI, compare that with NASDAQ. And I think the key thing is about putting diversification in the right basket. Because real estate is illiquid, however, it is a great hedge against inflation. It is also a great hedge in the sense that you do not have to worry about the expansionary money supply. So we have this term in PRB, we call it real estate eats, inflation is real estate. Real estate eats inflation for breakfast, in the sense that inflation erodes your debt that is in the real estate that you own. Subsequently, it also inflates your asset as monetary expansion happens. So I think it's about finding the right balance, having liquid and illiquid assets. So what causes assets, particularly real estate assets, to appreciate? Let's have a look. And I think this will help you to answer some of the questions that you might have, whether to take action or inaction today. So very importantly, we have to understand where we are at, because we are not born in another country where we have endless supply of land. So if we are born in Singapore, it's very important to understand the demand and supply in Singapore. I like to talk about demand first, because that will let us understand in the next 7 to 10 years, what kind of actions do we need to plan. So this news, I think a lot of people didn't catch it because this was in 2013. That was a white paper, and it is already happening. And the target, of course, is to go towards 6.9 million in terms of population, because our birth rates are extremely low. In a couple of years' time, we can match up to Japan's birth rate already. And in 7 years' time, when we walk on the streets, what's going to happen is that every 2 friends that we meet, 1 friend will be a Singaporean, 1 friend will be a foreign friend. And our foreigner friend will be either working in Singapore or they are a PR. So if we look at this, that's about 50-50%. I can just take 6.9 million divided by 2. And the fundamental thing that I want to share is that if we look at the classification of the people that will either need to rent or buy, there are 4 classifications. First column will be Singaporeans, second column will be PRs, third column will be foreigners that are working in Singapore, fourth will be foreigners that are not even working in Singapore, but they want to invest in Singapore, which is already happening over the last 20 years. And when we look on the left column, these are the total housing supply that we have in terms of types of properties. So if we look at the residential properties, HDB apartments, we have 1.2 million. Condos, we have about 360,000. Landed properties, we are stuck. There are only 73,000. So if we just look at residential supply, that is about the supply we have right now. But if you look at the orange color row, that is the only kind of residential property that suits international demand. So probably there's a reason why investors want to shift their capital that they already have in their current property to something that caters to international demand. Now, Singapore is very different. We are brought up with the DNA of owning properties. Everybody's aspiration is to own a home. And of course, if you're starting out, maybe your first aspiration is to own a home, get married, have kids. But through my 16 years, I have a lot of young couple customers as well that's been following us for many years. Initially, most of my clients, when they get married in their mid-20s or early 30s, they usually say that, this will be my forever home. But after 5 years, they will usually call me and say that, hey, I think I want to switch. I want to buy a second one, or I want to switch to a bigger home. So sometimes, I think it's important to plan forward, because if you look at the cost of living, real estate can be a great hedge in terms of where we are today. So home ownership across major cities, we are close to about 90% year on year. And when we look at the supply, currently we have about 1.2 million HDB apartments. In about 3 years' time, there's going to be another fresh set of 150,000 BTOs. Condominiums, we are currently at about 360,000 per year. We have about an introduction of 10,000 new homes through government land sales. So this is the landed supply, pretty much stuck all the way from 1997 until today at about 73,000. No more brand new land. Government will not introduce land for landed homes because every land plot should have a high plot ratio to build high-level homes. So the interesting thing about supply is, if you look at this, 360,000, but the roving stock is only about 262,000. The key rationale is this. Every round of additional buyer stamp duty for foreigners, it traps the existing stock. Why is it that it traps the existing stock? If you look at the 20% condos that are already owned by foreigners and PR, and the 5% that are owned by companies, this 25% will unlikely be reintroduced into the market. Why? Because they will not sell. Why is it that they will not sell? Because if they sell now, they have to buy back with 60% ABSD. And they all bought these homes before the 60% ABSD. They either bought it at the 10%, 20%, or 30% mark, but very unlikely they will sell because they cannot buy back already. So we are looking at about 262,000 roving stock, which compared to the overall population is actually quite little. And this cooling measure is important because it sort of helps us to understand what should we buy and what should we avoid buying from now onwards. So this was the phenomenon that I was talking about, because lesser new foreigner buyers, yes, that's correct, but what is going to happen is that in terms of their holding power, because if they have the holding power, very unlikely they will just put it in the market for fire sale because they can always rent it out, and they will not want to do it in the sense that because they cannot buy back, and they don't want to buy back with the 60% ABSD. So we also look at how many percent of transactions belongs to foreigner per year. So right now it has sort of already dropped to about 2 to 3% with the latest ABSD introduction. But anyway, in the past, it was always hovering at about 5%. And one of the thing that this will then cause is that if, let's say, foreigners, in terms of their transactions volume is dropping, then if you are going for a high quantum product, you will need to take note, because if, let's say, you are planning to go into a D10, 11, or D9 to get a high quantum $6-7 million condominium, this is something that you have to be cautious about, because in future, if the EBSD is not removed, your exit audience is going to drop. And you need to think about who is going to absorb your high quantum condominium in future in the CCR region. So, which type of real estate, after we have seen the demand and supply, has the most inelastic price to supply relationship? Let's have a look. These three properties. So, of course, this is like what we have learned in the past in economics. And when we look at this, we call this the hardness of asset. So, if we look from soft, hard to harder, technically what this means is that every time when you see newspapers, when the price rise, for example, for HDB properties, what is the next thing that will happen? You will start to think that, hey, will there be new policies to curb the price escalation? And if you see prices for landed properties rising, will there be new policies to curb the price rise in landed properties? So this is a decision-making matrix as well, because that allows you to think about, hey, should I shift my capital into a harder asset? Because what technically happens is that the more inelastic your asset is in the residential property region, the better is your price appreciation. And whenever HDB prices rise, this will be the topic in Parliament. And that is all good because HDB properties are meant for living. They are not meant to make money. And this is a very important element in our island-wide kind of policies. But the fact is that every time when prices rise, it attracts policies because it is very elastic and supply will be introduced. And thus, this is always the trend for the past 20 years. When you see price rise for something that's very elastic, government policy sets in to curb the demand or to increase the supply. And thus, your price potential, you will find that over the years, it tends to be more tepid compared to something that's more inelastic. So beefing up supply, and of course, in PLB, how we help our clients to make decisions is also based on several kinds of framework. This is one kind of framework, and landed properties belongs to the Q1 framework in the fact that it has great appreciation, but the yield is extremely low because the quantum is big. Q2 and Q3 and Q4 basically belongs to condominiums, but you have to also be careful. It's not that after today you just head out, immediately buy a condo, because you will hear people buying new launches or resale, but they don't see appreciation for many years. So you also have to do deeper analysis and framework. Now, for demand and supply, the summation for this part is that if you have the ability and you're in the right season, then plan for something that is harder because of what is going to come in 2030, as well as based on the supply level of properties types in the next 7 years. So how to avoid some of the mistakes when you are thinking about buying, let's say, a private property? So let's have a look. Now, mistake number one is that what Darius just mentioned is inaction. Because your best years are usually between your late 20s all the way until your late 40s. These are your best years. And sometimes when we try to time the market and we don't take action, we lose these years because when you talk to the bank in terms of your mortgage loan, you talk to you talk about your TDSR, these are all affected. Now, the highest earning power usually belongs to that period right there. And of course, when you're entering into your mid-50s, a lot of people will start to plan for a retirement strategy because you want to tap into the last portion that you can use most of your OA account for your property. And you want to make sure that during your best years, you don't forget about planning for your real estate investment. And sometimes when we look at the most elastic property, which is the HDB asset, most of the time we call this the trapped equity effect. This is the only real estate in Singapore that you cannot extract your equity. The only way to extract equity is to kill the golden goose. That means you have to sell it. So sometimes when your property has already appreciated, you're sitting on good margins, but you cannot extract it, unlike private real estate, where you can go for equity term loan. There's a lot of different facilities for you to do that. But the only way is that you have to kill the golden goose. But sometimes, just thinking about this creates inaction because we feel that, it's very sayang to sell off my HDB that I've been staying here for many years. But where if we compare that with the methodology about not wasting the best years of our life, I think sometimes the other perspective is that you can always buy back a HDB when you're in your 50s as well. So, So HDB real estate are meant for living, it's not for investment. And with the latest policies, you can head on to our NOTG channel. Recently, we released an episode talking about if you really want to have a safety benchmark to own a HDB as well as a condo, there's a way to do it. So there are two methodologies to own a HDB and a condo. One with ABSD, one without ABSD is still doable today. So watch the episode on NOTG. We talk about the latest framework and the methodology. And this has essentially created a new spectrum that we will see in the next 14 years. Because in future, what is going to happen is that for plus and prime kind of properties, it will not allow people to own a HDB and a private property in the sense that you can rent out your HDB as a form of rental investment. So this technically creates a new spectrum that we will see in 14 years' time. And this was the episode that I was referring to, the standard plus prime. And I just want to share about the first mistake is that this a client has followed us for about 10 over years. We started off with them purchasing the first HDB property. Today they own a landed home as well as a condo for investment rental. And their mindset from the start has always been that they want to expand the value of the properties that they're holding. So they're always in like an expansionary mode, but they're extremely prudent. They are both holding a good professional occupation. They are not running their own business, but they're extremely prudent. And with a step-by-step kind of planning over the last 10 over years, they managed to accomplish what they have today. So they started off with a HDB. We sold it for them after 5 years MOP. They bought a resale with grant. And of course, they moved into 2 properties after that, a penthouse and a rental investment, followed with, they still keep that rental property until today. And of course, they have expanded into a landed just about 3 years back. And till today, of course, their landed has expanded in valuation as well because they identify the landed property as a harder asset. The condominium is still a hard asset, but they want to let it run in terms of rental investment. So this is an example of their plan. And essentially what is going to happen by age 65, they also tell me that maybe they will sell off everything and move back to a HDB. And that might happen as well, right? So this is Daniel and his family. So we're interviewing him at his landed home. And mistake number 2 basically is about random buying. So after today, maybe you feel motivated to take action, but this will be a very costly mistake. What is random buying? This tool mindset has been one of the most costly mindset I've seen in my past 16 years, is that always assuming that new launch is the best. I'm not saying that new launch is no good. I bought a new launch before as well. New launches, if you select carefully, you can find the right gem. Assuming that freehold is always the best, which might not be true, but of course there are great freehold properties. But I think if we look at this, you'll always hear 2 kinds of advice. So if you meet anybody on the streets, you ask them, hey, when should I buy? They will say now, right? What to invest? They will tell new launch. And that is dangerous because if you didn't do homework enough, you will not be able to see the blind spots. So firstly, it's not about new launch or resale. It's really about the particular type of characteristics and factors of that project. And to understand that, a couple of frameworks to share with you. So this is, of course, a new launch that has performed very well. This was launched in the early days of 2019 until today. The owners are sitting on very good profit margin. Just some example, averagely, most owners are sitting about 300,000 to 400,000 of profit margin if they bought Park Extra. Sterling Residences also did very well. And of course, Panorama. And Panorama was, of course, something that has started in 2014, way before the COVID season, all right? And of course, you can see the profit margin over here, about 400,000 to 800,000, but not all properties will appreciate. Let me give you some example. This is a freehold property at D10. It has not U-turned until today, right? So the first owners bought in 2013, until today, they are still sitting on losses, right? And this is a Newton freehold project, 1 kilometer from a lot of great schools, until today have not recovered. Example of their paper loss, basically it's about 100, 200,000. 99 years project at D19, 2 batches of owners. Owners that went in at 2016, 2017 see paper gain. Owners that went in at 2018 still have not seen any paper gain yet. D11 freehold, plateaued all the way from launch. This is, of course, some of the owners that couldn't wait any longer. They exited, and of course, they realized they're lost. 99 years D23, some of the losses that has been realized over at that column right there. And of course, this is D9, 99 years. So sometimes when we look at this, and of course you can see the loss can amount to about $1 million when they sell. So sometimes when we see this, then we start to ponder, hey, new launch, confirm, will we see gains? Freehold, near good schools, will we see gains? Why is it that some properties can perform, some cannot perform? And when it comes to freehold decisions, you also will feel strange. Why is it that this property, which is already quite old now, Covent Melody, is right now having a balance lease of about 80 over years. But in the last 12 years, if you have bought a 3-bedder back then, appreciation is about 490,000. But if you bought something that is beside Covent Melody, that is freehold, the gain over the last 12 years is only 110,000 compared to 490,000. Why is it that a freehold property that is near to the MRT compared to a 99 beside the MRT has such a stark difference? Now, the key rationale is because in Singapore, the valuation method is very different. The valuation is not based on just tenure, it's based on volume of transactions. So in our 11 analytical factors that we do it for our clients, you can scan the QR code if you want to watch the full explanation video on this, is that there's 2 first things that you must adopt if, let's say, you want to own a property that you want to enjoy staying, but you want to see good appreciation in terms of a higher chance of seeing that in the next couple of years, is that the amount of units in that project must surpass a certain range because you want to ensure there's good volume. If there's not enough volume, the appreciation is stifled, right? And transactions, volume, and popularity, they have a combined relationship. So what is this relationship? Basically, if you go into a project with healthy transactions, it tells you about the popularity of the project. It also tells you the very fact that if there are willing buyers and willing sellers, this is a healthy project. And in future, if you want to exit, there will be lesser issues to exit. Secondly, bankers and valuers, when they work together, when you call your bank to ask them, hey, I want to sell my condo right now, what is my indicative valuation? The very first thing they look at is the past 12 months transactions to determine what will be the desktop valuation right now. So valuation is extremely correlated to volume. And this is, of course, the rationale about why we always look at transaction volumes. So this has a combined relationship because the very strange thing is that I can just name you just one property that is very old already, which is Mandarin Gardens. Mandarin Gardens is having a balance lease of 58, 57 years. But in the last 3 years, if you have bought a 3-bedder back then, your paper gain right now is already 400,000. Why is it that it is old, but the appreciation is still strong? Combination of reason, COVID. Second reason is that it has huge volume. Third reason is that the PSF is still low. But of course, you have to take note of Bala's curve as well, because the moment it hits a certain point, then the lease tenure will start to kick in to decrease your valuation. So that's something of another topic. Now, moving on, we also use this mode analysis to determine the points of investment. And these are some of our signature strategies that we use in-house. And let me move on to mistake number 3, is that if you buy the wrong type of properties in the wrong season, that can also be dangerous. So how do we select the right type of property in the right season? We use this thing called disparity effect. So disparity effect is that in a particular season, certain types of properties tends to have a higher potential to move up compared to another type of property. So things will always shift in different seasons because in school we call this the substitution effect if you study economics. And right now, my own personal forecast is that in the next 24 months, what might happen is that resale property will be dominant. The key rationale is because the PSF level of the 3 types of condos are too close. So newly TOP projects and new launches, they are too close in the sense that they belong to one segment altogether that's away from the resale condos. So resale condos right now, it is the key kind of substitute product in the market in the sense that it makes sense. But if you look at new launch PSF level, newly TOP PSF level, they are currently at a new benchmark, which buyers would need some time to be able to absorb to this new level. So in the next 24 months, this, because of the fact that it has a high disparity away from the other two, it will have more potential to move up. And once it moves up to a new level, then this two type will start to move faster. So sometimes it's important to study the disparity between prices as well. Now, just an example. So the rationale is that, let's say somebody is in the market looking for a 4-bedder, and when they look at this 3 different kinds of choices that they have, and because of the very fact that if, let's say, they want space, but at the same time they are also concerned about the overall quantum and PSF level, then you will get to see why is it that in the next 12 to 24 months, a lot of people will be looking at resale condos. Now, another form of disparity into the landed market. So when we look at disparity, it's also important to understand if, let's say, somebody is going for a landed, they look at 3 different types. What is the gap in between, and how do they make decisions? So when you enter into something that right now is not in the right season, what will happen is that if you are the owner of something that is at the new benchmark, it will take longer for you to exit in future. But if you are the owner of something that is in the benchmark level that has the potential to rise up in the next 3 to 5 years, when you want to exit in future, it is easier. So, these are the 3 choices again. Of course, right now for condominiums, there are about 47 launches right now, 38 projects that will hit completion this year, and of course, resale choices, 320,000. And an example of disparity effect for landed is that in 2020, we released an episode to inform our audience that inter-terraces is now prime for appreciation. So what happened over the next 2 years is that inter-terraces move up faster than semi-D, as well as detached homes. And once that is fulfilled, what happened was that right now, in the year 2023, we released another episode to share that the right season right now could be semi-Ds because inter-terraces has moved up too fast. And thus, the disparity effect is a decision-making tool as well to look at what kind of homes should you go for in the right season. Some of our methodologies, okay. And of course, because I don't have time, so I prepared this QR code. If you want to understand about disparity effect, I hope that this can add value to you. You can scan this. Later on, I'll pass the slides to Darius as well. You can, I don't know whether you can share the slides. Okay, great. Now, the last thing before I hand over to the next speaker is that if you're somebody that really loves brand new properties and you really love new launches, we recently researched 160 projects to look at their 8 years performance, and we came up with these 4 frameworks just to ensure that if you want to buy a new launch, you don't go for something that is overpriced, because they are overpriced, they are right priced kind of new launches as well. And if, let's say, you really want to go for new launch, there are 4 different frameworks right here. One is called the break-even calculator. The other one is the lease reset calculator. It's to reset the property that you're going for and to look at the surrounding projects to see if the PSI makes sense. Third one will be mode analysis. Fourth one is the X percentage threshold. That means the new launch that you go into should not exceed this number compared to the resale that is surrounding it. If you exceed a certain range, then it might mean that it is a little bit more overpriced. So you can also scan here to watch the full video. And of course, with that, I thank you for spending time with me. Hope that this session has added value to you. Thank you.